Good afternoon, everybody. Is this on? Hi. I'm Cindy Keeler, a writer for the OneRing.net. And on behalf of the Cincinnati Comic Expo, it is my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Sean Astin.
You guys made it out after Oktoberfest. Good for you on Sunday morning. Cool. Hey, thank you for having me again.
Thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah.
So, yesterday, the Middle Earth panel, they started talking about the Goonies and Rudy, even though it's, hobbits and dwarves.
Just back here, one of the volunteers was asking, or one of the crew guys was asking me, the same thing everybody asks is there going to be Goonies 2? So my answer this time was, yeah. It's coming out June 7th, 2016.
Is it really?
No, it really is not. But I'm just going to go with that because then people will get excited and then they'll turn it back. Because what happens is Richard Donner, the director, will come out of a restaurant and TMZ will come up to him and he'll say, oh, yeah, we're doing it 100%. We're doing it right now. And then it's great because my Facebook posts go from like 80,000 likes to 250,000 likes. And everywhere I go, people want to know, so what, is it true? What's happening? You're like, I just got whammied. By the director because I don't have a good answer. The answer is yes, 100%, no question about it. Goonies will have a sequel someday. Yeah. So there you go. And what was the other one you said?
Oh, they were little kids yesterday asking about Rudy. I'm thinking, yeah. How do you know about Rudy? You 20 years.
I know the first half for a kid is boring. All right, they're at a mill and he can't get into college and his dad doesn't get along with him. Like, woohoo, let's watch it. But no, what I notice about kids is, and it's not just Rudy, it's anything. I have 3 daughters, so they'll throw up a roadblock about lots of stuff right away. I don't want to watch that. And they just dismiss it out of hand. But if you get them for 30 seconds, you got them. They want to know what happened. That's how I got my daughters to watch the Star Wars saga. I was going to say trilogy, but there's like 100 of them. So like 6 of them. So what happened was every time I put it on, it's fighting. They don't like fighting. They don't like anything violent. They don't like fighting of any kind. They don't like dragons. They like more now. They're a little older at Comic-Con in San Diego. They seem to respond. But basically at this point, and this was probably 5 years ago, they were out, and I queued it up to the moment where Princess Leia is in the detention center, and Darth Vader comes in with that floating thing that's going to give her a truth serum shot or whatever. And I freeze framed it on Carrie Fisher's look of kind of like strength and fear at the same time, and I just paused it there. and my daughter walks in and says, well, who's that? And I said, oh, no, you don't want to, I'll turn it off. Who's the pretty girl? No, you guys really, honestly, you don't want to see, it's dangerous. She's about to get hurt. You don't want to know. Boom, had him. So, and I think it's the same thing with a movie like Rudy, is if you start to care about the people you're looking at, and that there's an amazing thing about Rudy. If people declare what they want, a lot of people don't know what they want. There was a time in my life in my 20s where I had so many choices. There was so much I could do, but I didn't know exactly, I tried to do a bunch of different things, and you can't do it all at once, which is my kind of MO. And my dad just said, well, just do what you want to do. And I said, well, what if I don't know what that is? So, but with a character like Rudy who says, I want to do something. I want to play football for the University of Notre Dame. Well, it's ridiculous that he's never going to play. It's an absurd dream for a 5'7", 5'6" guy with no athletic ability and, academics aren't good. Like, it's not a reasonable goal. So it's awesome because it doesn't matter. You want somebody to get what they want. And you start to root for it. And the more, the cooler it is and the more unreasonable it is, the more the more you choosing to root for them makes you spectacular. People who root for Rudy are special because they get that that's the right way to be. So it's a symbiotic relationship between between the person who has the dream and the people who want that person to achieve their dream, because you kind of need both in order for it to happen. So little kids, they key on that, which is awesome.
That makes me wonder, why'd Sam go on that journey with Frodo?
Duty. Chandler, he just laughs every time he hears the word duty. Yeah, he was doing his duty.
Duty to Frodo specifically, even at the beginning. I mean, they were friends, but where'd that duty come from? That determination to stick.
Well, I think Tolkien, there's a kind of a distinct class society in England, certainly around. Hello, sorry, hi. I believe Tolkien was focused on the issue of class. So the Batmen, not Batman, Batman is how I spelled the same way, were in the British Army. They were enlisted soldiers who were assigned to, I don't know the history too well, but a major or a colonel or something like that, and it was their job to tend to their needs, cook their food, take care of making sure their uniforms were clean. If an officer comes out and he's going to order you into battle and he looks a wreck, it subtly might undermine the confidence in the mission. But if the uniform is pressed and the buttons are polished and the officer comes out with an air of real authority, it can engender confidence. So, but the colonel doesn't have time to polish his uniform. So, in a weird way, that guy who's, ironing the shirt and who's cooking the food, he's got a part of the war effort. And they were noted in England in the First World War, where Tolkien fought, for their bravery and for their kind of gallantry and selflessness. So. And then if you take that and you go back to the kind of the English, there's a lord of a manor and then there's the servant class, and we've all watched Downton Abbey, right? There is honor in there's a particular type of honor in owning your craft as a whatever it is, carpenter or butler or whatever it is. So the nature of the gardener is one of the most important, farmers and gardeners. It's your hands are in the soil. It's deeply meaningful role in the world to play. But he's gardening for his master, and he's the second generation. Gaffer Gamgee's gardened for Bilbo, so. Gardening it's an amazing thing with your hands in the soil and the smell and understanding the nature of how things grow and everything, but it's also service. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a service relationship. So they're not just friends. Frodo is a very, he's not even really the master. He's kind of a reluctant master, but something about Sam serving him, because that's his role to do, almost ennobles Frodo before Frodo even realizes it's happening. So, and he makes, he says the thing about making a promise to Gandalf that he won't leave him. But it's not just that it's to Gandalf, it's that that's what's in his heart. He wants to be in service of him. And then it becomes something else too. He loves him like a brother. So, yeah. So he goes, I think I got it right with the first word. He goes because it's his duty to go.
I know we're probably going to have a lot of questions, so if you'd like to come up to the microphone in the middle, and do be sure to speak right into it. As time goes on, I'll eventually have to say we only have time for a few more, and if there's people in line after that, I'm sorry, but we'll see how it goes.
That'll be taken out in the back and shot.
Hi, my name's Vince. It's a great pleasure to
Hi, Vince.
say hello to you. As someone who's a little older than you and kind of grew up and watching you as we kind of both grew up, I also got the great pleasure of enjoying your father as well.
You guys know John Astin, the original Gomez from the Addams Family?
So I was just wondering, absolutely. So I was just wondering if you had any favorite stories about your dad that you tell folks like us, something that you could tell us today. Thank you.
Thank you for the good words about my dad. He's 85 years old now. He teaches drama. He's been teaching drama at Johns Hopkins University for 13, 14, 15 years now. That was his alma mater. Yeah, it's been a mission in his life and a dream of his to restore it as a major. He majored in drama at Johns Hopkins in the 50s, I guess. But now they don't offer it as a major; it's a minor. You can take it there. So he's been working really hard to kind of establish that program. But stories about my dad, you know, there's one that occurs to me that I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was 6 or 7 years old, because we would sit in our living room and we had a great house. It was a nice house. From the street, it kind of looked like a big house. It wasn't a mansion or anything, but it had, I don't know, 5 bedrooms or something like that. And there was this one long area where there was a floor, wooden floor, and you could step down into the living room, and we would sit on what felt like a stage, because if you're in the living room and you're looking at the top of the stairs. So my little brother and I would put on plays and do our things there. And he would get out the projector, and there was a bay window that overlooked the street, and we would open the bay window, and out of the bay window would come a kind of rudimentary, an old school projector screen. What do you call it? Screen, yeah. So, and then we would watch 16 millimeter films, mostly of the Addams Family. So, and most kids now just can't even fathom what it's like not to have an iPad that they can watch any movie ever made, and freeze frame it and back it up and pause it and watch something else and watch, But in those days, we would, mechanically turn it backwards, and, if Gomez went crashing into a coat of arms and it fell on him, then we would make him come back out of the coat of arms, and then he would go back into the coat of arms, then he'd come back out of the coat. So I thought that was awesome. And at one point, I remember breaking into one of the closets. He had 5 sons, so I mean, he adopted me, but at a certain time there were 5 of us in the house at one point, ranging in ages from like 16 to, and I was the 4th one. So tools. He didn't want you with his tool chest to. He'd look for a hammer, and it'd be, in a tree in the backyard and the thing. And one of the kids took it up there, and because they were going to build a tree house, and then they abandoned that project and left the hammer up there. So he was quite particular about, you're not allowed to take the tools. You're not allowed to take his certain things. So he had a Super 8 camera, and I found a way to get the Super 8 camera out and start making my movies. Now, you needed money to take the cartridges to Jack's camera and get it, processed, but we were doing that, and we worked it out where if we did chores, they'd give us money, and at one point I actually had a paper route, and so I could afford film and developing and all that. But I came up with a movie called The Enchanted Dreamer, and it was basically I didn't even know Chronicles of Narnia, but it was basically The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe opening that my little brother goes in. It was like a little poltergeist, and and we got some dry ice. My friend Mark Marshall brought dry ice out there, and I created different characters for people. And my mom, I made her the queen of whatever, and she wore these jewels, and we filmed it in the gazebo out in the backyard. And she was all right. I wasn't wowed by the Academy Award she won and all the Emmys she had on the wall. It was like I wanted her to do what I wanted to do, but she was a temperamental actress, and I learned how to deal with that early on. So, but then my dad, because the question's about my dad, I remember going and saying, "Dad, I wrote this character for you, the Alpha and the Omega." So he's basically a Ben Kenobi character, and I wanted him to wear a robe, and we were going to film it in the woods outside of UCLA, we had stormtrooper helmets, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good. I don't know where it is, but our friend, my mom's assistant, made us a little ship, and it had lights in it, and so we did special effects, like and spin the camera around. But anyhow, I just remember my dad asking him, like, "Daddy, you got to come do this. Will you do this? Whatever." And at a certain point, like, it wasn't like, "Dad, can you come into the other room and help me?" It was like, "Dad, will you get in the car and drive, and either we'll have you change into your wardrobe, and so you're going to be driving with wardrobe on, or will you get out to the woods, and we'll find a tree for you to put your wardrobe on behind the tree," or something like that. And there's dialogue, and these are the words that I wrote for you. And he's at one point he just said, he goes, "Sean, I'm a professional actor." Like, call my agent,
Hello. I've been watching your movies since I was 7 or so. I've also been a big fan of Spielberg, so I wanted to know, what was it like to work with him in Goonies?
Well, what was it like to work with Mr. Spielberg? My audition, I'll try and truncate this story, but my audition was a scene that didn't get put in the movie, but I was talking about life is like a game show, basically, and there's 3 doors, and you can get behind what's door number 1 or door number 2, or like the jar of toothpicks behind door number 3. And Mikey was saying to Brand, like, I don't want to live with the jar full of toothpicks. Like, I want more than that. I don't want the chance to. So my dad worked with me for hours on the audition, and then drove me over from where we lived in West LA to Universal Studios, and to go back into the to where the Amblin offices were. And I'm sitting outside, and in the ante room or whatever, and Mark Marshall, the guy who would eventually bring me the dry house for my short film, Steven's personal assistant, came out and said, "We're ready for you now." And I said, "Okay." And we start walking towards this beautiful offices with Spanish tile and these kind of arches, and it sort of looked like old school Hollywood, like something out of LA Confidential or something. And just before we get there, he says, "You look a little nervous." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm a little nervous." He goes, "Well, why? You're just about to meet the most powerful man in Hollywood." And he opens the door like that. I actually never got through the scene because I kept messing up. Oh. And it's Mark's fault. Mark almost cost me that. I should have a strongly worded letter to Mark about. Yeah, we became very good friends, and I'm like, wait a minute, he sabotaged me. But at a certain point, so I mess up. And it's okay. Well, let's go back and do it again. I do it again, and I mess up again, and I think I said a bad word. I know I said a bad word. Started with an S and ended in a T, and it's something a 12-year-old shouldn't say in front of a bunch of grown-ups, probably. And Steven got up and walked out. He walked out, and I was like, oh. Well, I definitely didn't get this movie, and I probably won't get any movie ever now that he walked out. And then Dick Donner came around. Richard Donner, the director of the movie, came around from their imposing desk and kind of kneeled down on the ground and had this conversation with me and told me what he wanted me to do. And I said, okay, and I went and I did it, and obviously I captured the essence of it, but I messed up the words again, and at the end of it, I just thank you very much, and I walked out, and I got in the car, and my dad said, how'd you do? And I was like, I messed up. He's like, it's impossible. You couldn't have messed up. I said, I messed up. He goes, you were so prepared. There's no way. I said, Dad, the guy got up and he walked out. My dad just shaking his head. He doesn't understand it. By the time I got home, they had called and there was an offer to play the part. So Steven later said, I thought maybe I was making you nervous. Oh. So I got up and left because I didn't want to make you nervous. So there is this awareness of him with his iconography and I mean, even back then in the 80s, that before he walks into a room, he's owned the room for a long time. The crew that works for him have the Samwise sense of duty, because the movies that he does, I mean, if you think of Schindler's List or, Empire of the Sun or, they're works of important cultural communication, and so they just, if he wants a dolly track laid, they want it to be good, they want it to be efficient, they want it to be right, they want it to be, so he did direct a few scenes, and one of the scenes that he insisted on directing, a lot of times he would reshoot something, like if they did it and something didn't work right and they figured it out, like the wishing well scene he redirected because it was originally staged with Mikey on top of the wishing well, looking down at the Goonies and saying, please don't go. And Steven thought it would be better if I was down in the well looking up at them and pleading up. So he reshot that scene with that one distinct difference in staging. But the one that he insisted was the kissing scene. Most people say, what's your favorite scene in Goonies? That was my favorite scene in Goonies. But he had an experience with Henry Thomas on E.T., famously, where E.T.'s let all the frogs out and the door's open and the wind is blowing and Elliot steps on the fat kid and grabs the girl and kind of brings her into his arms and kisses her. And apparently, right when he said cut, Henry went, and the girl went crying off to the bathroom, and it was like she was traumatized by that. So Steven was determined not to have that happen again. Well, Carrie Green was, 15, 16, 17. I don't know how old she was, but she was, And I was like, cool. Let's get ready to rumble. And so, just the 2 takes is all? Okay. So anyhow, that's I could go on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is...
They're clapping for people who like kissing, just in case you're wondering. For those of you who didn't clap, you missed your opportunity to celebrate the nature of kissing, but go ahead.
That's right. Speaking of that, thank you. My name is Ken. One of the best dates my wife and I had was a Valentine's Day when we saw 50 First Dates, and I loved your role in that movie. And I'm somewhat older than this gentleman. I'm a midterm boomer, so that means the early 50s, and I grew up watching your parents. And I won't do it here, but for example, I could sing the Patty Duke Show theme from front to back. So I just want to thank.
Give me about 6 seconds of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Kathy's been most anywhere from Zanzibar to Berkeley Square.
And Patty's only seen the sights a girl can see from Brooklyn Heights. What a crazy pair, but they're cousins. Hi, Dan.
So I want to thank you and your family for more than 50 years of wonderful entertainment for our generation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. I'm just thinking about getting them for the sequel for Enchanted Dreamer now, but yeah, pretty great. It's pretty great. My mom's in North Idaho. I don't know why she just no. My stepdad was from up there, so she's. Yeah, I think of them as national treasures. My mom put out her book about bipolar disorder. She was diagnosed in 85, I think, and so she wanted to use her. I mean, now we have a word, her platform, if you will, but she wanted to use her life to, share what her pain was for other people. So there's, and they did a lot of advocacy work, and the Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon, they hosted the New York version of it, and we did like Coast Guard commercials, water safety commercials. Like their work is amazing for their work, and but it also for me, their life includes so much more, and their commitment to citizenship, and there's just so much about them that I revere. But what's cool about 50 First Dates is aside from Doug's protein thick and sounds kind of fruity, and watch yourself, Doug, and like he's like just every line he has is Aretha and Spam, and it's a great movie because of its heart. The idea that you have to work every day to make your mate fall in love with you is pretty great message, and Drew Barrymore was so sweet. So I love that you had that as your first date, and I'm glad I could offer some slightly strange mesh-colored, buttocks clenching nonsense to as the aperitif there. But okay, go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I want to say thank you for being here in Cincinnati and sharing your considerable star power and so forth with our Comic Expo. And I also want to thank
considerable star power.
Considerable star power. Influence.
I'm not sure once you get beyond the borders of Cincinnati how considerable it is anymore, but I'm glad within
Well,
the
we're
Queen
glad-
City. There is.
We're delighted to have you here. Thank you for your philanthropic and advocacy. Your Run Third.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. My question is, you have a new movie coming out fairly soon, Woodlawn. I understand it's a real story. Could you speak to that a little bit and your relationship to that character?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, first of all, what a weekend to come to Cincinnati. Holy mackerel. I mean, shouldn't we all be at the football game right now? I guess this isn't the football crowd. I know. So we're different kind of group over here. But with the Oktoberfest, and I did the big run with the 14K run yesterday, and then Comic-Con's going on, and I had no idea. I'd never been to Cincinnati before. I feel like I've been everywhere in the world, but for some reason I've never been to Cincinnati. And I got in at like midnight, and driving over the hill, when you see the skyline, and you just think, holy mackerel, this is a jewel. You know, what a cool thing. And it's got hills, apparently, when you're running. I didn't. Yeah, there's 7 of them. That's a thing. I'll get back to you. So in terms of my philanthropy and citizenship and all that kind of stuff, you know, I'm second generation. And my parents, I swear my mom was grooming me to be president of the United States. In her mind. You know, she was characterized. There's still time? Oh, I did announce at one convention like a month ago that I announced officially my candidacy for the presidency of the United States, but I didn't file papers yet, so that's why CNN isn't covering it. But I'm happy to field any of those questions as well. But do I think Trump's nuts? Oh, sorry. Well, now what he would do is put it out there and then not answer it. No, he's not nuts. Is that what you said? What'd you say? Can I beat these nuts? Probably not. So Run Third, there's a couple of them. This crowd would probably dig the Sean Reads Aloud thing that I just launched. I've had it in mind for a long time, since way before the Al Gore invented the internet. And we went down to do Lord of the Rings, and it was just, websites were just getting kind of going, really. And I wanted to read books out loud, like have a subscription series where you have audiobooks. And Audible wasn't really a thing then, I don't think. And we just could never get it going. I just couldn't think of it. And producing an audiobook, it actually costs money. It's not. You would think it's easy. You're just sitting in front of a microphone, but it's not. There's technology, and there's licensing rights, and there's production things, and there's time in a studio, and it just takes. So, but the other day, but this has been a constant. The more I've done voiceover work, the more I've read. I did the audio Bible. I did my own book. I did as an audiobook for Audible.com. I did just a whole bunch of different readings and things, and I'm always thinking, my wife and I have a production company. Like, how can we do it? The other day, I was tired from training for the triathlon, which is in 20 days now, the Ironman Kona triathlon that I'm doing, and I think I was sitting in my room, and I just pulled up, I think it was Peter Pan. No, it was Time Machine, H.G. Wells' Time Machine. I have this, Dick Donner from the Goonies gave me this leather-bound set of gold-leafed classics, Isaac Asimov and Jack London and H.G. Wells and others. And I just pulled the H.G. Wells thing down, and I opened up, I don't know if it was GarageBand or whatever the basic thing on the laptop was, the built-in recorder, and I just read the first chapter. And then I turned that into an MP4, and then I put that into movie Final Cut, and then I created a title for it, and then I uploaded it to YouTube. And then I went to GoFundMe, and I wrote a little thing on what I wanted to do, and then I put up a GoFundMe thing. And the idea is, I'm going to read books aloud. And they won't be fully produced the way an Audible.com thing is, but I want to do like a subscription series. If you pay $1 a month or $3 a month, or I don't know what the right price point is, but once a month I'll read Alice in Wonderland, or I don't know, something. I have ideas of doing like a little cluster of children's books, and then maybe a cluster of war books or history books, biographies, something like that. And it's just my way. I like reading aloud, and it would actually be a responsibility for me to have to do the thing I like to do. So, and then I wanted it to be a for-profit product, but then I thought the right thing to do is to like give a good chunk of it to a literacy cause. So my wife and I have the Shauna Christine Astin literacy scholarship fund, because we did that with Verizon back in the late 90s, and we got like $30,000 to a couple of kids over a couple of years and a couple of students over a couple of years. And so that was out there, and it raised like $3,000 in a week or two, and it's still sitting there, and I'll start promoting it again, but in a little bit, but I've had to reprioritize. I just wrote a long thing about why I like crowdfunding. Why do I like to ask the public for money, and do things in $5 and $25 contributions, and the answer is because it works. So and you can, like, I raised we raised $24,000 for the Martin Richard Foundation, the little boy who was killed in the Boston Marathon bombing, and his parents set up a foundation in his honor, and so they invited me to be in the marathon. I would never be able to qualify for the Boston Marathon, but so I ran in the Boston Marathon this year, and we raised that money, and things, you just kind of pay it forward like that. So Run Third is, that's what I have on my wrist right now. This has been going since 2012, when basically what happens is stuff gets put in my lap, and then I figure out how to like do stuff that makes it, that grows it, that includes other people, that's fun. And so the LA Marathon that I was running in 2012 had a prompt: run for something. And I was kind of embarrassed because when I go out for a run, I'm like to get in shape, mental health, hygiene, you can think clearly when you're running, you're a better human being when you're in physical shape. So, but that's not what they wanted to know. So who would I run for? And I'm like, well, I guess if I had to choose something, I'd run for my wife and daughters, but that's not the spirit of their question, really. So I was like, okay, what are the things that have affected my life? My mom is bipolar. My wife's dad committed suicide. We know lots of people who've deployed, service members overseas. We know, lots of autistic kids. Like, you just name it, any issue or cause or whatever, like most American families, we've been touched by it in some way. And I didn't want to choose just one. So I was like, I'll put it back on, since I'm a public figure, I'll put it back on the public. Well, what do you want me to run for? So it started out as, I was really interested in Twitter and the revolutionary properties that it had. Right after Tahrir Square, when in Egypt, a bunch of kids deposed a dictator using Twitter. So I was like, ooh, I should pay attention to Twitter. So anyhow, hashtag Run Third for my dad who has Alzheimer's. My dad doesn't have Alzheimer's, but somebody's grandfather. You know what I mean? Like your loved one, your cause, whatever. And then I'll wear it, or anybody will wear it, and anyone who wears it is running on behalf of, on that Twitter strand, all those people. And it was amazing. Thousands of people shared their heart. When you prompted them, I was prompted, and so I came up with an answer. And when I prompt you, you come up with an answer. And it's just a very quick way to sort of go like, hey, what's in your heart? Okay, I care about you. That's all, just in 1 second. And so now it's become a, what? You're looking at time? 10 minutes to go?
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes.
All right, there's not too many people. I'll hang on 1 second. Let me just finish one real quick. So right now, I was invited by the Ironman organization to compete in the championship. I've never run a full triathlon before, but I've been training for 5 months for it. It's in 20 days. It's in Kailua Kona, Big Island of Hawaii. 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, 26.2 mile run, and they give you 17 hours to do it. So and they're going to give $25,000 to my Run Third charity. And basically what the Run Third charity was, this year we had our first 5K, and it benefited an after-school running program in an underserved area. And we basically included in a lesson plan for these kids this idea of caring about other people. So they would write about it, and they would go home and find out who their parents wanted them to run for. And so on race day, they were wearing the names of their family members or their friends or their causes, and these kids were like 10 feet tall. They weren't just running because they were going to get a medal or because they were, they were good at it. They were running. They were charged with a sense of authority and responsibility by running for them. So I'm going to take that 25 grand, started a second GoFundMe campaign, which is gofundme.com/run third, RUN3RD. So $5 from all of you. And that money is going to go. We're trying to make it a formal, like 501c3, and find schools around, underserved schools, and do that. So, long question. Sorry.
Okay, so my question is actually about running.
About running? Oh, good.
Yes, I'm a runner, and so I want to know.
You look like a runner.
Thank you. Do you prefer to train for speed or distance? And what is the most memorable run, like when you crossed the finish line, you were just emotionally like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this?
Wow.
Well, I mean, you have one coming up.
Wow, yeah.
Obviously in Hawaii.
Yeah, great. I appreciate the question. First of all, good for you, getting out there, making it happen. I'm really quick for, like in a 100-yard dash. I'm surprisingly, for my size, like people will see me run. They're like, my wife was like, wow, you're really kind of quick. But I actually am like a tugboat. I just got long and just chug on. Maybe a train is a better analogy. I just long and slow. I like go long and slow. And when I actually start to speed up again, it gets harder. So the training I've been doing here, where they bursts and then long slow ones, and then So I enjoy running in the natural world, long and slow. That's where I get the most satisfaction. Yeah, because my mind just wanders, and I just love seeing like the sunset. I like running at night when the sun is setting and stuff. So, or early in the morning, just before the sun comes up. So the most satisfying finish of any formal run. I mean, I've done 10 full marathons: 4 LA, San Francisco, Chicago, the Disney World, and the Marine Corps. Maybe I should say the Marine Corps. And I talked to Iris, the race director of the Flying Pig, and it is my intention to come back in March and do the Flying Pig. Yeah, because I want to do all 50 states and 7 continents. So if you're gonna do Ohio, like, gotta do the Flying Pig, I guess. So anyhow, so I maybe when I finished the Marine Corps marathon, that was a very emotional moment. They actually have in the last 300 yards or 400 yards, this really steep hill that you have to get down from the road that goes adjacent to the highway up to the area right where Iwo Jima is. It finishes right under Iwo Jima Memorial. But in order to get there, there's this one, and it's probably a 50-yard climb, maybe a little bit longer, but it's like running up a ladder. And by the time you get up, you're like, it's not like most finishes where you sprint. Somebody who's been doing 15-minute miles for 6 hours all of a sudden does a 3-minute mile and then lasts 100 yards when they're crossing the finish line. It's not like that. It was like you just kind of released, and you looked up, and there was the Iwo Jima statue, and there had been this incredible experience on mile 13. For a mile, there was this living memorial set up where every 3 yards was a placard with a fallen service member and a flag, and their family members were there. And you just that was pretty breathtaking. I could go on. There's more. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. This is speed round. These are gonna be fast questions, fast answers, or else nobody else. More people got up. You can't get up. She said you were done. Okay, go ahead.
I got to ask you about Encino Man.
Encino Man.
Do you still remember any of the dance moves from the end of that movie? And are you willing to bust out a couple of them for us?
I'll let my fingers do it. Yeah. There you go.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hey.
For Ninja Turtles, what was it like working with Rob Paulson and Greg Sipes?
First of all, they're so talented. They're so for Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, working with my turtle brothers. Rob Paulson is, first of all, he worked with my dad on a couple of, was it Pinky? I can't remember what my dad did with him. No, I can't remember what it was, but anyhow, he worked on him. So when I came in, he was just so happy to have the son of somebody that he really admired working. So we just had an instant bond there. And then just watching his professionalism. And the one thing about Rob is every time he starts working, I tell people in line this, if we're doing ADR, which is additional dialogue recording, a lot of times when you're starting the episode, you just perform it and they go animate it later. Then once they've animated it, some things don't fit. You got to go back and match it to the picture. And every time they put something up, he is so in awe of what they do. He never gets used to it. For him, it's always because he went through the Turtles the first time. He was Raphael the first time, and he went through that, and it was a huge ride for them. And now he gets to do it again. So he's just going to enjoy every moment of it, and his enjoyment just affects everyone else. You know, it lifts you up when you share your joy with other people. And then Greg Sipes is the single funniest human being I've ever had the privilege of meeting in my entire life, and I don't care. And I've worked with some of the greats. He is just a unique individual. He's a granola, free spirit. I don't know how many girls he's got going at any one time in his dating roster, but he's from Hawaii. He's like his nutrition, everything about him is so just wonderful, and he's fantastic at the character. And actually, I have to fight not to laugh. Sometimes I'll try and stifle a laugh and snort when he's doing stuff, and it's not really professional because it could be some great performance of his that you just messed up, but he's just so funny. The writing is funny, and he's just crazy with it. Anyhow, yeah, quick, fast. I'll go fast.
Yeah,
I'll
we
go
only have
fast.
5.
Okay.
I'm thinking 2 more.
But thank you for your dedication to everyone here.
The person in the cab is the absolute last person. Just so you know, nobody else gets to get up. Okay, go.
All right. Anyway, I am here as more of an actor and hopefully director one day. So I want to know any advice, tips on such.
See, I don't want to give you advice. I want you to hire me. Okay? So all you need to know is
and education.
all you need to know is, well, then go out and get an iPhone and download some editing program and go do a 60-second video where you create an emotion where when people see it, they feel something. Just go do that. And if it feels good, then do it again. And then hire me eventually.
Hi. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I have shown your reading from Storyline Online of A Bad Case of Stripes to every class that I do because I love your story. Of
Camilla
how
Cream
you
and her lima beans.
Yes, you and your daughter loving the lima beans. So I wanted to know, is there any other stories like that you have fond memories of reading with your children?
Well, it's funny. I just wrote this long thing about my childhood and my mom reading to me Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach and even Steinbeck, like The Pearl and The Old Man in the Sea, and when she read aloud, it changed my life. I became an English major in my because of language, the power of language. So with my kids, I always love reading the Lorax to them, and they're patient with me there. They like their mom reading to them more than they like me reading to them. Because I try and do the voices, and they're just like, "Don't do the voices, just read it."
The voices. I love your voices on
yeah,
that.
I know. Well, that's why I want to do the Read Aloud series, so you and I can commune.
I'll love it.
What else did I read to them? I was just putting my thing, King Bidgood's in the bathtub, and he won't get out. It doesn't matter. Like Allie's going to Harvard now, but she still likes it when I read King Bidgood's in the bathtub, and he won't get out. Anyhow,
awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to go super fast.
What is the worst injury you've suffered in making a movie?
Elven loom fell on my head and knocked me out. Way more dangerous than the thing that cut my foot on Lord of the Rings and had to have stitches and stuff. So it knocked me out. That was I think I did in Sinnoh Man. I suffered a couple of injuries, but that I think was the one that you had to get like MRIs and CAT scans or whatever. So yeah. Okay, there you go. We're finishing off strong.
When you did Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, when you were doing it with Gollum, was Gollum a guy in a green screen suit, or was he put into the movie by computer?
Both. Gollum was an amazing accomplishment in special effects, creatures. He was both. Andy Serkis was there on the set. He wasn't physically going to be in the movie. They would film a scene with him and me, like fighting, and then he would step out and we'd film it again with me fighting space, the Gollum in my mind. And he wore a green suit, but he didn't need to, so that was, guy in a green lycra suit in the freezing cold. But anyhow, yeah, it was. And interestingly, he stayed around way longer than he had to because when they were animating the character of Gollum, he would go to all the different animators and watch what they were doing, and he would talk with them about the emotions that he was feeling. So he actually helped direct the performance through the animators. It was a really cool thing. Okay, next. Thank you for the question. Yeah, nice to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you again too. But like what we talked about yesterday,
Yeah.
due to my condition that I have, it makes controlling anger really difficult for me. So that's
Yeah.
why I connect so well to your Raphael that you play.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, do you connect to that character, or do you like really have to reach deep to like try?
I get really angry sometimes. I get really angry. Really, the people who see it are my family. You know, I'm pretty good at not being angry. Other places, I actually am an expert, a self-described expert in conflict resolution with other people. But if I'm like really hungry or really tired, and there's something, usually it's safety. If there's something wrong with safety, if somebody cuts me off in traffic and they were being unsafe, if somebody does something that I think is dangerous for my kids, I can go, I call it going purple, where I kind of lose the plot and I get really angry, and it scares them. My family, they don't like it. So I've had to try and develop techniques to mitigate my own feeling. And the best way of doing it is like just imagining a part of myself jumping outside of myself and looking at the angry person and like having that other me, judge the angry me, and I'm not judgmental in a negative way, but I would be able, if you two were having a fight, I'm pretty sure I could find a way to have you work it out together. So I try and do that for myself, but yeah, no, I'm not immune to anger.
Awesome.
Thank you. You're doing great, by the way. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, this is a kind of a three.
No, you have to pick one. You have to look at how upset she is, because they've
go
got
fast.
people in the next room.
Super fast.
Pick your favorite one of those three.
Okay. Have you ever, speaking of Goonies 2, have you ever played the video game Goonies 2?
I have. I was terrible at the Nintendo Goonies 2 video game. Go ahead. Give me a second one. Quick.
Okay. And have you seen the animated version of Lord of the Rings, and what did you think of it?
The Ralph Bakshi version of Lord of the Rings. Now that I know we don't have to do anything like it, when we started making the movie and I saw it, I hated it. I did like the ring wraiths. I thought the ring wraiths were good, but the hobbits made me very upset, because I thought maybe I would have to try and mimic them or something. And once we realized, no, we got to do our own version of it, then I enjoy just what Ralph tried to do. It was really kind of, can you condense the Lord of the Rings trilogy into an hour animated? That's like not an easy thing to do. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your questions. We got 2 out of 3. That's not bad.
Hi. My question is, what's your favorite scene from Lord of the Rings?
My favorite scene from Lord of the Rings. I don't know, but it's a crowd pleaser. The one I'll tell you. At the end of, I told this yesterday too, so a little repetitive, but the scene in the Osgiliath ruins at the end of the 2 towers was not originally in the movie. It was written in response to the 9/11 terrorist attack. And when we filmed it, you knew that we already knew that the first film had come out and was a global success. So now that there was no question that the second one was going to be successful. At that point, the answer is you didn't know before the first one came out. But when the first one came out and won, was nominated for 12 Oscars or something and made $1 billion and was, it became a cultural phenomenon. So now we're finishing up the second one. It's like, okay, how do you get it right? How do you honor what the expectation that's been set up is? And when we were doing that, you just realized that this, the first one came along 2 months after 9/11, and it was really an amazing thing that the world that was really in a state of shock had this fantasy world that dealt with the nature of good and evil to kind of disappear into for a while. So, but that was a moment. You can't sort of recapture that necessarily, but this speech did, and it was amazing because it actually acknowledged from within the movie that the filmmakers of the movie understood what the function of the Tolkien story was and what the function of the movie was in the world. It was self-conscious in that way, but it was really powerful. So Frodo has almost killed Sam with Sting, and Gollum is sitting there, and Sam looks out and he says, it's like in the great tales, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really matter. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only we didn't. We kept holding on to something. And he goes through the whole speech. And what does he say? How could there be good when so much bad had happened? It says it. Right, it says the thing. Most of the time, if you state directly whatever the thing is, you kind of crush it. But this one captured it, and they have that great footage of the Ents and taking over, whatever it's called, the Isengard. Say the hobbits are off to Isengard. Okay, sorry, Isengard. So, and Frodo says, what are we fighting for? And he says that there is some good in the world, and it's worth fighting. And it's worth fighting for. So that's one of the best ones. Yeah. That's time to go. They need the room. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you, everybody. You want to go out these doors over here. Have a great day at the Expo.